Hi, my name is Will Leto, and today I'm going to talk to you about the story of how I became the Wisconsin mask collector. So, when I was a kid growing up, I was always really into Halloween. My mom and dad always chose what I was for probably the first 6 years of my life at least. I remember specifically being like Mike Wazowski one year from Monsters, Inc., and like cute kid Halloween costumes like dragons and stuff like that. And then when I was younger and I went to a babysitter's house, every year she used to have this big rummage sale for the whole community, like citywide rummage sales. And she used to let us do work around the house to buy stuff out of the rummage sale. And she had this one particular mask, and I've never seen one in person again since I've had it. I found it online a few times when I've been digging, but it was just this silly big head basketball mask. It was the face of a basketball, had a nose and a big toothy smile, and it had sunglasses and a mohawk. And I had a fixation on that mask for some reason, so I worked for probably a week or so leading up to her rummage sale, pulling weeds in the garden and doing all sorts of stuff so I could get that mask. And of course I got other things like PlayStation 1 games because childhood priorities. And that's one of the first masks I ever really remember getting on my own. Granted, it was from a babysitter and I did household chores to get it, but I was just really fixated on that. I wanted that mask. And then I also remember really early on in my childhood of my first Halloween costume that I picked out on my own. It was this jester costume, and it was just a skull jester face, and it had like some red and black face paint and big sharp teeth. It had this mace. That was another thing when I was a little kid, was I was super obsessed with the Halloween weapons. I loved the props, had to have the props. And it was just this mace that was a skull with a bunch of spikes on it, and I was super obsessed with it, and I just loved it. And that kind of just spiraled out of control after that. Every Halloween it was something new, something different. I always wanted to do cool stuff. I remember one year I wore a Slipknot t-shirt that I was so proud of having. No one else in school knew who Slipknot was, but here I was, that weird kid who loved masks and metal music. And I had a Slipknot mask, and I had a Slipknot t-shirt, and I had a Rob Zombie mask on, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And I wore fingerless gloves, and I painted my fingernails, and I put makeup on under the mask, and I carried around this huge, ridiculous orc sword, and I thought I was so cool with that. And then when I was about 15 is when I started really getting into masks. I started buying top dollar masks. I remember one of the first big masks I ever bought was a replica Mushroomhead mask. Mushroomhead is a band that I listen to that I've pretty much wrapped a lot of my life around, following them around. They're all really good guys and I'm friends with them, but they wear masks. That's what they have been doing ever since they first came out in 1993. And I got a replica of one of their masks, and it costed me $150. And to a lot of people who have nothing to do with masks, they probably think that's a lot of money. And for as far as that realm, that's just a fraction of what I've spent on single masks before. And that was a fake one. That wasn't even one of their real masks. Their real masks go for much more. I'm not really going to get into the details of financials, but that was when I was 15 years old. And I've just, over the years, I've been buying more and more from Mushroomhead. I buy more from my friends who are artists. I buy other indie artists' work. I've gotten mass-produced masks, like from companies like Trick or Treat Studios or Ruby's. And then a lot lately, my main focus in my collection world is vintage stuff. I've been hunting every year around Halloween time and all year round through internet and other services, vintage masks that are really sought after and sometimes worth a lot of money. I have a few masks in my collection that are original vintage that are worth hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, and especially if you would tally my whole collection together, which is nuts, and I'm not gonna do that because everyone will think I'm crazy with how much money I have in pieces of rubber. And that's been the main focus of my collection, but next I want to talk to you about me making masks. And as far as making masks, the earliest stuff I ever did was just getting masks that were already made from other artists or from companies, like I said earlier, like Trick or Treat Studios or Ruby's or just any company really. and I just kind of started converting them and painting them. And that's how a lot of people in the community kind of get a feel towards masks, is they just get stuff from the outside and then they just kind of start painting them and working on them. And the cool thing of that is that's how like a lot of mainstream mask bands did their stuff. They didn't right away have artists make their stuff. Mushroomhead and Slipknot, they both had store-bought masks that anyone could have gotten, and they would cut them up or put a zipper in the mouth or put leather and rivets all over them or paint them different. Another band that did that is the Australian band Berserker. And it's really cool because especially as a younger kid, when you can do stuff that other people have done that's gotten famous and that people have been replicating for years. The Slipknot replica community is huge. People are replicating their original masks from their self-titled album cycle every day, and they sell it for hundreds of dollars because that's what people want. They like that look. So it's really cool to kind of get a start in converting and painting alone, as well as I wish I could have started right away with the full mask making process, but that's just kind of how I got my start. And I remember getting this really poor sculpted All Hope Is Gone Corey Taylor mask. It's a Slipknot mask. And I was like, I've always wanted one of these, but this one kind of sucks. So I did like this really weird paint job. I did not know what I was doing. And I liked it at first, and then I just kept putting neon paint on it, and I kept painting all these weird like symbols and dashes, and it kind of got out of hand. And I still have it. It's in my closet, folded up like a taco almost. And that's before I really knew anything. And then my best friend in the world, pretty much, today we have a mask making company together, but he sculpted something that we call the Sad Clown. And that was my first big step into the gateway door, whatever you want to call it, of mask making. So this is the Sad Clown. My friend Paul J. Vick sculpted this as just an old man clown who's just sad. That's just something we like, sad clowns. And of course we were friends, so I always was interested in them. And after a while I visited him for the first time because he lives 3 hours away, kind of in the Chicago area, and I live in the Waupaca County area of Wisconsin, so it took a while to be able to see him, and plus we didn't really know each other, talking online, yada yada. But I went and visited him for the first time, and he taught me a ton of mask making stuff, because before that, like I said, I was just a paint and convert kid. I had never done anything. So this is actually the first latex mask I ever casted out of his Sad Clown mold. And he gave me some blanks too, and I went home with this knowledge of how to cast, and I thought I was so cool that I finally casted latex, and that was me taking another big footstep. So this one is really old. This one's about 4 years old now. It's getting there. It doesn't sound really old, but to me that's ages ago because of how far I progressed. And this is the first one I ever painted too, the first Sad Clown I ever painted. I'm obviously a juggalo, so I did half of Violent J and half of Shaggy 2-Dope, and I did this really cool split face. And looking at this now, if I were to paint something like this now, I'd be mad at myself, because this is before I really knew the ins and the outs of Juggalo paint as well. I've painted so many Juggalo related Sad Clowns now that I have a lot of the face paint shapes down and memorized, and it's just been something I like to do. I paint Juggalo on all sorts of random stuff. I've always made jokes like, "Will Juggalo this mask for food?" or something like that. And after a while, I went to an Insane Clown Posse show with Paul, of course, and I showed it to them. I was like, "Hey, I made this like 2 years ago," and they really loved it. Violent J looked at me, he's like, "What are you saying, we're old, sad, washed up clowns?" And he kind of hit me on the shoulder, you know. And Shaggy 2-Dope was like, "Man, why are you not throwing this stuff on eBay?" Which is also really funny, but I had them both sign it. They really liked it. I have pictures with it. And that was just kind of how I got my foot in the door. Granted, now, years later, Paul and I have a lot of sentiment together. Like I said, he's my best friend, and we've done a lot of work together. Last year, he told me, like, this is your mold. I've seen you make a lot of these. I know what you do with it. This is yours. So now I own the Sad Clown mold, and I've been able to make other masks of the Sad Clown, like this guy. This is one of the few I've kept. I've only kept a few. Unfortunately, most of my work heads out the door. I was just really attached to this one. It looks really cool. And another cool thing about this one is Paul started this paint job, and then I decided to finish it. So it was kind of like a collaborative paint job, and this is where it landed. And then that leads to the next mask I made, which was the skin face. Now the skin face was also sculpted by a close friend of mine who is no longer in the mask hobby, and the same thing happened. I got a blank from him, I finished it, and later on he's like, hey Will, I'm not making these masks anymore. You did the best one of them. I only ever made 3 and you got one of them. I think this mask belongs to you. You've made it your personal mask. I want to sell you the mold. So that's how I came across the skin face. And this is the first one I ever did of the skin face. This is my personal copy, you could call it. And it's really evolved over the years. I've got glasses on him. He's got a battery going in his eye. Half the time I have screwdrivers or pins stuck into the mannequin head. It's just this grungy white mask with all this blood and these stitches, and there's some metal in there, some wires holding his mouth on. And it glows too, because it's got a glow. That's just the neat thing to do. And that was the first one I ever did of that. And like I said, it kind of just turned into my personal mask. And then another really cool thing I did with that one was I started kind of making friends locally with my mask, not just online. And this mask, I made it to be similar to the movie Tusk by Kevin Smith, which is a crazy movie, but it's a bunch of people sewn in to make one thing, essentially. I'm not going to spoil it, so that's what I tried to do with this. I tried to replicate a bunch of different skin tones and chop up this mask and sew them into one mask in itself, like Tusk. And a local model approached me and wanted to take photos in this, so one of my masks got really cool model photos done, and that's kind of just been my journey of making masks. And my most recent step, I say recent, but it's been months in the making, was I found the person who owned the Don Post Insane Clown Posse master cast. When Don Post went out of business in 2012, they liquidated all of their assets, including their molds and masters. So that's how I became the owner of the master cast of the Insane Clown Posse mask that they made in 2011. So now I've been making these really cool resin Violent J and Shaggy 2-Dope masks. And that's been my making bounds as of late. I'm about to make these available in latex soon, so that's a really cool what if future scenario. And that's kind of just how I became a thing. That's me. That's the Wisconsin Mask Collector, also known as Wisco Masco, and my co-brand, Sad Clown Studios. I hope you guys kind of like this little mini biography, and yeah, thanks for watching.